Hi, and welcome to FedEx Delivers a Better Customer Service Experience via Analytics, a Take 30 with one-to-one media webcast sponsored by InContact. I'm Tom Hoffman at One-to-One Media, and I'll be the moderator for today's event where we'll be exploring best practices for using analytics to learn more about why customers call the contact center and other insights that can be used to coach agents and ultimately to deliver a better customer service experience. Our featured speaker today is Larry Midyett, Manager of Customer Service Quality Assurance at FedEx for the past 9 years. Larry and his team were recognized with a Gartner One-to-One Media CRM Excellence Award in 2012 for the company's strategic use of customer analytics to better understand why customers were calling its contact centers and to identify ways to deliver better customer service experiences while improving call handling efficiency. Larry, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Tom. I appreciate the opportunity to be on and to speak with you.
So before we jump into the discussion with Larry, I'd like to offer our attendees a few pointers on using the On24 tool. First, please turn off your pop-up blockers to enable a survey that will be provided during the webcast. We'd encourage everyone to participate. To download a copy of today's slides, please click on the green resource widget. If you have a question for one of our presenters, please click on the red Q&A widget, type in your question, and then hit submit. If you encounter any technical issues during the webcast, please click on the help button that's located in the center of the toolbar. Also, feel free to tweet about today's webcast using the hashtag that's shown here. Now for a bit more background on the key points that we'll be covering in today's discussion. Today, Larry and I will discuss how FedEx is using customer analytics tools to learn more about its customers and to identify ways to strengthen the customer service experience. We'll also explore discoveries that FedEx has made about different aspects of the customer service experience that Larry and his team have been able to act on. Finally, we'll examine best practices for using customer analytics and customer data to boost the customer service experience and to drive contact center performance. This will be followed by a Q&A and the post-event survey that I mentioned. There's a lot that customers share in their interactions with customer service agents that can inform contact center leaders and be used to coach agents on different areas for improvement. This can include the tone of voice that agents are using in customer interactions, or a failure to follow certain processes that have been designed to help resolve customer service issues or to drive operational efficiency. Quality monitoring tools are great for helping contact center leaders to identify and respond to customer issues more quickly. And companies that continuously strive to improve the contact center experience and draw on customer information are typically able to achieve solid improvements in business performance. For instance, a study by Aberdeen Group last year found that companies that successfully use customer data can drive 19% top-line revenue growth while retaining 88% of their customers year over year. Companies like FedEx go a step further and use customer analytics to better understand why customers are reaching out to the contact center and the types of issues they're looking to resolve. Analytics can enable contact center leaders to conduct root cause analysis on things like recent changes in average handle time or first contact resolution. And from there, they can drill down on the factors that are contributing on those variations and then take appropriate actions. So at this point, I'd like to bring Larry into the discussion to share with us how FedEx has been making use of customer analytics. But before we do so, Larry, tell us a little bit about how customer service has evolved in recent years for FedEx and the drivers behind this.
Okay. For FedEx customer service in recent years, we've noticed that our caller makeup has changed a little bit, for one thing, and then also we've changed our model a good bit too. So we're actually using more outsourced vendors and more remote reps. So that's kind of changed how we approach customer service at FedEx. But as I said before, our caller base has changed, and we've noticed we have more recipient callers now than the shipper callers that we used to have a greater percentage of in the past. And then we've also noticed that the call reasons, if you will, or the call drivers have changed. So as the callers themselves has changed, their reasons or their issues have changed as well. And like I said, they're more recipient callers now than shipper callers. And the thing that's made that a little bit different for us is that most of our business rules are based on the shipper callers, and so when these recipient callers call and they've got a particular issue, we find ourselves in the position of sometimes having to say, well, no, I'm sorry, we can't do that because only the shipper is authorized to make that request or to make that change. And so it's caused us to have to rethink, how we approach, problem resolution and problem solving for our callers.
Right. And Larry, I know that you and I have spoken before about how the calls that are coming into the contact center have become more complex in recent years. Can you talk a little bit about this and what's driving this complexity?
Sure, absolutely. And one thing is what I mentioned just a moment ago is, again, more recipient callers, and our business rules were geared more towards shipper callers. And so that's made the issues a little bit more complex for us to try and deal with, and we've had to begin to rethink what our business rules should be and how can we accommodate those requests from the recipients. And then two, just as other companies are doing, we offer now more self-service options to customers through the IVR or through the website. And so as customers are doing more of the transactional things on those self-service options, then the calls that our agents are actually handling end up being more complex issues. And so that adds a little more challenge for the agents at that point. And then I think the third thing is I think we're just finding that the customer needs are becoming more complex. So as more and more customers are becoming dependent on a shipper like FedEx to help them with their inventory or their just-in-time inventory and that type of thing, whatever their business model is, we're finding that their particular needs are more complex. Again, in the past, we were dealing with more transactional issues, scheduling a pickup, ordering supplies, where's the nearest drop-off location, things like that, and we still get some of those, but we've got a higher percentage now of calls that are more complex, problem-related calls that we're dealing with.
Sure. Yeah, that makes sense. So, given what you've laid out for us with the changes that have taken place in customer service as well as the increased complexity of calls that you're seeing, how is this impacting the metrics that are being used to measure contact center performance?
Well, I think we've had to, recognize the opportunity, and we've had to shift some from the more traditional, large call center type of metrics and start to look more at some of the more customer-focused or customer-based kind of metrics, if you will. So, FedEx had measured in the past and will continue to measure the more traditional metrics such as average handle time and schedule adherence and percent of contribution and a call quality component. But, we're also looking more at our external customer satisfaction survey scores and different ways that we can measure customer effort. Because we really feel like that, to provide, good service, we want to minimize the amount of effort that it takes for the customer to have to do business with us. So then you start looking more at, some of your first call resolution or resolution rate or repeat call type of metrics to recognize, okay, when the customers call us with an issue, how good a job are we doing at actually taking ownership and resolving that issue so the customer doesn't have to expend any more effort in order to make that happen for them.
Thanks. Yeah, that certainly maps with what we're seeing in terms of an increasing number of companies that are striving to try to measure customer effort and steps that can be taken to minimize customer effort, if you will. So let's talk a little bit about analytics. What are some of the ways that FedEx is using customer feedback that's gathered and then applying analytics for agent coaching opportunities? Yeah.
Well, actually for us, the way we look at it is it really all does come down to the coaching component. That's the way we put it. That's really where the rubber meets the road, as they say. It's one thing to have, your analytics applications and so forth in your reporting that gives you that visibility into that customer effort and what that customer experience is really like. But then it's the other thing to really be able to do the type of monitoring and coaching and so forth that really drives those behaviors from your agents that really then lead to a better customer experience. So it's one thing to measure it, but then can you really do anything with that information? So we do then put a lot of emphasis on that agent coaching, and to that end, we actually have changed one of our performance metrics for our agents over the past year. So in the past, we had the average handle time goal on our agents' annual performance evaluation as one of their performance metrics, and we've actually replaced that now this year with what we call an activity resolution rate metric. So it's kind of like a repeat call measurement metric, if you will. And so we measure how good a job this particular rep did at resolving all of the issues on a particular customer call. The first time they had it, and it doesn't matter which call it happens to be in the sequence. You can have a call that is a first call from a customer about a particular issue, or it could be the third or the fourth call in the sequence of calls from that customer about that issue. But if you're the agent on that call, your challenge at that point is to resolve it right then. So, and sometimes customers call with multiple issues, and so we look at how good a job did this agent do at resolving all the issues with that customer on that call, so the customer doesn't have to call back again. And so we really are putting a lot of emphasis now on that, and like I said, we've replaced what was a traditional call center metric, down at the agent level, with a little less traditional one at this point in time with this activity resolution rate metric. And we'll still measure the average handle time. It's still a huge cost component, but we want the agents to be focused on servicing the customer and take that emphasis or that focus, if you will, off of them in their mind, and not be so concerned about the handle time itself.
Yeah, it sounds like a great metric to put in place to help drive and make sure the company is being more customer focused too.
Yes.
So Larry, can you also share with us other discoveries about the customer experience that have been generated through the use of analytics?
Sure. I think the other thing that we have learned is some of the things that we kind of had anecdotal, input or suspicions about in the past. Through the use of analytics, we've been able to actually quantify those things. And by being able to quantify those things, you change the whole conversation about them. So where from a customer service standpoint, if you're anecdotally saying, well, gee, we're hearing this from customers a lot, or we're hearing that, or we think we've got an increase in this type of a call, that's one conversation. But if you can actually say, we've got the data on this, we've analyzed this, we see now that we're doing X% more of this kind of handling this kind of an issue than we were in the past, or even that like I said before, that our caller base has changed to some extent to more like recipient versus shipper, that type of thing. Then that's a whole different conversation. And so those discoveries have really helped us in those conversations, and being at that table saying, here's what we think the opportunities are. But also I think it's just given us, again, it goes back to that whole being more focused on the customer experience and being more customer focused as we approach whatever application is, or whatever our programs are that we're going to put in place to, again, it all comes down to the coaching. How are we going to coach and help the reps demonstrate those behaviors that lead to a better customer experience? So we have much more emphasis now through our call quality guidelines and things of that nature about really connecting with the customer, clearly identifying need, and making sure that you're resolving all of the issues, clearly communicating expectations to customers so that they don't have to wonder what's going to happen next, and really setting the right identifying the need and setting the right expectations with the customer.
That sounds like a very adaptable approach too. So, Larry, one of the things that we find in our reporting and research at One-to-One Media is that when we talk to contact center leaders, they'll often share with us if I ask them questions or if we ask them questions about the use or adoption of customer analytics, the response is often, it's something that it's a place where we'd like to get to, but we're not quite there yet. There's other blocking and tackling that they feel they need to take care of. So I'm wondering if you could share with our attendees, for those customer service and contact center leaders that are considering the use of analytics, what are some recommended starting points?
Okay. Well, for us, for our experience, our biggest challenge initially was just trying to come up with our own definition of what those particular metrics or measurements were going to be. I think we went for some period of time, recognizing that we had an opportunity to be more customer focused and be more, pay more attention to things like resolution rates and first call resolution and so forth. But at that point in time, at least, as many different, companies that you'd go out and benchmark with and ask about how they were doing with that, you'd get about that many different answers. Everybody had a little bit different way of how they define that. And so I think we got kind of wrapped around the axle for a little while, not really being sure how we should define that or what was the correct definition. And I think the realization we eventually came to was it can be different for everybody. It's okay if our version of first call resolution, if you will, is a little different than this company's or that company's. We have to define what that means to us, and then we can go forward, based on that. The other thing I think is important is, again, don't get wrapped around the axle about what you can't do or what data you don't have or can't get at the moment. Use what you do have and try to use that, to the best extent that you can. So in other words, don't let best get in the way of better. There is no end to data needs and there is no end to analytics. So, don't try to start off with, the ultimate, application or reporting and so forth. Use what you do have and then work on developing the rest. Come up with your own definition of what this measurement should mean or should look like for your organization or for your company, and then use that as your starting point.
Right. Okay, thanks. That's good advice. So, given your experience, what are the biggest lessons that you've learned from the use of analytics so far?
Well, I think for us, the biggest lesson that we've learned from this, it's not necessarily a new lesson. Maybe we just validated it, but we hear the adage that information is power, and like I said earlier, being able to quantify and provide real visibility into or new visibility into what the customer experience is really like, rather than anecdotal versions of that, it makes the conversation completely different. So, in the past, we always knew we had some percentage of repeat calls because, through the audio, through listening to calls or through playing back call recordings and so forth, customers will sometimes tell you, I called about this earlier. And sometimes we created, a case, if you will, about a customer issue, and in creating that case, you're passing it on to the next person that needs to do some handling with it. And so sometimes customers call back about those case-related issues, and so we make updates in the case notes, and so we could see this was a repeat call. But we weren't really quantifying it and necessarily doing anything about it. If the issue eventually got resolved, then it got resolved, and that was the ultimate goal. But now we're recognizing that customer service is about more than that, and the customer experience sometimes is more involved than we wanted to admit or realize. And so I think the biggest lesson learned is that having that visibility and having those analytics and having everything quantified through solid data, like I said, we were able to change those conversations. And we're FedEx has multiple operating companies, so with FedEx Express and FedEx Ground and Home Delivery and FedEx Freight and FedEx Office, so forth. We're the customer service at FedEx is in the FedEx Tech Connect operating company, and so we feel a responsibility to provide this kind of feedback, if you will, to the other operating companies like Express and Ground and so forth. And here's what we think our opportunities are. And like I said, it became a whole different conversation. We had it quantified, and we can go to them and say, look, here's what we're hearing from customers. This is the kind of customer effort that it looks like it's is being required sometimes in order for customers to get this issue resolved or to make this service change request happen. And what can we do together now to improve that, to make a better customer experience? So, frankly, things that some of the operating companies hadn't necessarily, paid that much attention to in the past, now we've got full attention and everybody is aligned. We formed a new quality action team that's strictly focused on cross-OpCo problem resolution, and we've had that for the last 2.5 to 3 years. And I think we've made really significant process and business rule changes that that will help lead to that better customer experience.
Thanks for sharing that. Yeah, obviously it's a process of continuous learning and adjusting, as you pointed out. So Larry, thanks so much for everything that you've shared with us so far. And at this point, we'd like to open this up to the audience Q&A. First, a few reminders. We'd like to encourage everyone to participate in the survey that's posted during the Q&A period. So please take a moment to participate. Again, you'll need to turn off your pop-up blockers to enable the survey. So let's jump into the Q&A. To ask a question, again, click on the red Q&A icon, type in your question, and then hit send. And if we don't get to your question today, we'll email you with a response. So Larry, this first question is about business and operational performance. Can you talk about how the use of customer analytics has impacted both operational and business performance?
Yeah, I think the best example for us is, and one of the examples I was kind of alluding to in the last response, we at one time, FedEx recognized that it was the right thing to do to give the customer a specific expectation when they called in and there was a particular issue that we were going to have to research and do some work on to resolve, and we couldn't necessarily resolve it right on that particular call. And so we would tell the customer, okay, someone's going to call you back within 2 hours or whatever the business rule was for that particular service and so forth. And because there were some issues with us not actually meeting all those callbacks sometimes, our agents got out of the habit of actually providing that specific timing. But we kind of migrated to telling the customer, okay, I'm passing on this information and this issue to the downline resource that needs to work it, and someone will call you back as soon as they've got an update for you or as soon as they've got some information for you. And what we found through the use of our analytics was, because we weren't setting a specific expectation, customers were defining for themselves how long that should take. And so as we began to look at these repeat call scenarios and what those call curves look like, we found that a whole lot of customers where we had a repeat, we don't always have repeats, to be clear, but in the cases where we did have repeat calls, a lot of times customers were calling back within 20 minutes, 30 minutes, where we knew in our minds that's going to take us about 2 hours to get to that point to be able to share some information with them. Because we weren't setting that expectation, they were calling back much sooner in a lot of cases. So there again, we were able to go to the table, talk to the operating company folks and say, look, we've got two opportunities here. One, we need to start giving, customer service needs to start giving that expectation to customers so that they won't call back within a few minutes. They'll know to at least wait that 2 hours if that's what it is. And two, we need for you guys to make sure you're making those callbacks. So we developed a new callback compliance report, and we implemented the process change for our representatives and our agents to start setting that expectation. And we've seen huge improvements in that. But that wasn't necessarily something new. That's something that we knew was an opportunity, but until we were able to quantify it, it was just an anecdotal conversation, and we weren't getting that much attention to it. So that was a big change for us.
Yeah. Well, thanks for sharing that. That's great. Another question came in, Larry, about how you went about gaining buy-in from leaders within the organization to shift from a focus off average handle time, and how you went about doing that and who you were able to gain support from to help make that happen.
Okay. I won't pretend that that was an easy thing because there were certainly some concerns that shifting that focus, if you will, off of the rep performance evaluation about average handle time was going to make it, much more difficult to manage average handle time for the reps. But the way we looked at it, and to be honest with you, the quality assurance department was a huge driver in this shift. And the way we looked at it was we really want to take that pressure off of the agent, and our call center managers and coaches, frankly, have to manage that. We can't expect the agent to manage that. And really, we tried to have tried and are continuing to shift that focus, even with our managers and our coaches, from an average handle time focus to being more of an efficiency focus. And I'll tell you what I mean by that. We actually developed a model some years ago that we said these are our stages of call handling, kind of high level, and I kind of alluded to it a few minutes ago, but determine the need, offer the right options, get the customer to agree on what solution they want, communicate the expectations, and then close the call. And I won't go into it, but there were specific reasons why those were the stages. But my point is, if you were going to an agent to talk about average handle time, those were the guidelines. Those were the stages we developed. Well, now if you say, okay, I'm going to go to an agent and I'm going to coach on resolution or resolving a customer issue, guess what you're going to talk about? Make sure you clearly identify the customer need. Make sure you offer all the options based on that need. Make sure you get the agreement from the customer on which one they want to select. Make sure you clearly communicate the expectations so they don't wonder what's going to happen next, and then effectively close the call. So point is, it's the same conversation. So efficiency is efficiency, and we were able to convince our executive management that if we focus on resolution rate and resolving customer issues, not only are we providing a better customer experience, we're eliminating repeat calls, so that's a savings. We're also, by the way, repeat calls are longer calls usually because now the customer's got more of a story to tell or more of an issue, and so you're migrating those longer calls out of the network, and so overall your average handle time should actually reduce. Now, I will say that sometimes I think that may take a little traction. It may take a little while to find that balance between how much handle time is it worth to get X amount of improvement in your resolution rate, but the balance is there somewhere.
Well, thanks for sharing that. I'm sure it hasn't come easy, but as you point out, this results both in a better customer experience as well as operational benefits that come through as a result.
Right.
So, Larry, you also had mentioned earlier that you're seeing greater use among customers for self-service via the web. Are you considering using chat, or are you currently using chat at FedEx?
We do use some chat at this point in time for certain specific things. We don't offer just a full chat option where you can just go to the website and say, hey, I want to chat with somebody. But there are some specific functions out on certain screens, and if a customer hovers over a particular area for more than a certain amount of time, then a chat opportunity is offered to them. And then we have representatives who they can chat with at that point about that specific thing, like maybe the right international shipping paperwork or something of that nature. We're currently looking at expanding those chat options, but that's kind of the level we do it at now.
Okay, thanks. Well, at this point, we've run out of time, but I'd like to thank again Larry Midyett for sharing his valuable insights with us today, and to thank all of you for joining us. Unfortunately, we've run out of time, as I mentioned, so any unanswered questions will be addressed by email. This concludes FedEx Delivers a Better Customer Service Experience via Analytics, a Take 30 with one-to-one webcast sponsored by InContact. On behalf of the entire team, thanks for attending and have a great day.